Hi, I'm Josh, and I am so grateful that you've decided to join me as I talk about the board games that I played and purchased in the month of August 2022. In contrast to July, which was my biggest gaming month yet, August was a fairly quiet month for gaming, so this won't take too long. Let's get straight to it. In August, I only had one gaming session with my primary board gaming friend, and the first game we got back to again was Clank. Now, you know how much I love Clank. This time we decided to go with the first expansion that ever came out for Clank that was called Gold and Silk. On the gold side of the expansion map, basically players are dwarves, and there is a lot of gold available within the dungeon, so an unusually large number of items can potentially be purchased from the market, or the gold can be used to collect points. So gold is a much bigger focus in the gold side of the map. On the silk side of the map, we're dealing with spiders, and in that version of the expansion, you have a much larger emphasis on swords, because you need to collect a lot of swords to cut through the webs, to make your way through pathways, and to cut items out of webs to collect items. So it's interesting that in both of the versions of that expansion, there is an emphasis on one aspect of the game. We played the silk side, so our focus was more on the swords and in dealing with the webs and that sort of thing. I rate Clank and all of his expansions 9 out of 10. My friend rates this expansion 9 out of 10, which was kind of interesting to me because in previous months when we had played the Temple of the Ape Lords expansion and the Sunken Treasures expansion, he had rated both of those 9.5 out of 10, whereas this one's a 9 out of 10. Not much difference, but just a tiny difference. Next up, we did a two-player play of New York Zoo, another one that I've talked about quite a bit in recent months, so I won't get into it too much. One thing I've found with New York Zoo, even as a two-player game, is it feels like it runs on a little bit long, especially since the game also has a long setup time where you have to kind of lay out all the tiles and prepare everything for the gameplay. Add that to a relatively long gameplay time, and it feels like it kind of stretches on for a bit. Fortunately, for the two-player game specifically, there are short game rules included in the rulebook. So it looks like it could shorten it a fair bit, and it looks like there's also a way where you can kind of adjust that a little bit if you want kind of something in between their version of the short rules and the full game. So the point is, I guess, at least with a two-player game, the game length is somewhat adjustable, which is pretty cool. I rate New York Zoo 7 out of 10. My friend rates it 7.5 out of 10. And then the third and final game that we played was owned by my friend, and that is Can't Stop, the classic dice rolling push your luck game, and it's just pure fun. There's really nothing to it strategy-wise other than deciding whether to push your luck for one more roll or play it safe and take what you've got up to that point. And it's a fun game. I rate it 7.5 out of 10. My friend rates it 8 out of 10. So nothing but good times with Can't Stop. Now the next sort of gaming time happened on a camping trip. I took my boys camping with their uncles and cousins, and so I brought the perfect little two-player play literally anywhere game, and this is Hive Pocket. Because of the indestructible Bakelite pieces, this can be played on a beach, in inclement weather, literally in water, pretty much anywhere where you have just a little bit of space to play it out. Hive is just such a brilliant little game. It is a no-luck game, so it is a highly tactical, highly strategic game. I feel like it would really appeal to the type of person who enjoys chess and who maybe would want a slightly simpler and faster playing game than chess to come to occasionally. It is slightly chess-like in the way that each of the pieces, which are bugs in this game, have different movement capabilities, and ultimately the goal is to surround your opponent's queen with pieces. So this is one I ended up pulling out with one of my nephews as well as with one of my sons, and it was really fun getting back to Hive. I haven't played it in quite a while. Next is one that we played more as a group game. So we played, I think, a 6 or 7 player game or 2 of Codenames. This is just a really amazing word game for a group of anywhere from 4 to 6 would be kind of ideal. You could probably get away with 8, but it's played in 2 teams where one player on each team is the clue giver. The other players are working together to guess words based on the clues that are given. And for anyone who enjoys word games, this is going to be a fun experience. It's an interesting game in that you might think of it as a party game because it's made for a large group of players and there are very few rules to have to learn, but it's actually quite a cerebral, thinky game. And so there is definitely downtime as the clue givers are trying to come up with clues to give to their teams, but then when the clues are given, the team can discuss amongst themselves and decide how they want to work with those clues. I've previously talked about the really amazing 2-player cooperative version of Codenames called Codenames Duet, and I think I enjoy that even more than Codenames, but I do enjoy Codenames a lot to the point where I rate it 8 out of 10. The final game we played while we were camping was a 3-player game of Magic the Gathering. We played a commander format in that we each had a 100-card deck that one of my nephews had brought along with him. I think that was my very first time playing Magic with more than 2 players, and I didn't love it. I don't like adding an element of politicking into Magic where you maybe have to convince your opponent to attack your other opponent instead of yourself, or at various times you have to choose, okay, which of my 2 opponents, in the case of a 3-player game, am I going to attack? And I don't like to add that element into the game. I'm just not at all into negotiation elements in games because I'm not competitive enough to care. If somebody wants to attack me in a game, okay, go ahead, do what you need to do. I'm not going to necessarily take the time to try to convince you to attack somebody else. I've played with gamers who are the exact opposite, who anytime you do anything in a game that maybe negatively affects them, they'll whine and complain and say, do something else that will negatively affect this other player, not me. And that irritates me a lot. I just don't care. I'm just there to have fun and enjoy gaming with people. If you want to attack me, go ahead. I don't want to play a game where there's an element of trying to negotiate and politic with players. It's not my idea of a fun time. But it was fun just to play Magic with my son and my nephew, and so I did ultimately think that was a fun experience. It was certainly fun to try playing with more than 2 players, and overall I do rate Magic a 7.5 out of 10. So that's it for the games that were played. Before I talk about the games that I purchased, let me just send out a quick thank you to my Patreon supporters, to Joanna, Paul, and Osmond is Perfect. Having that financial backing is just such a meaningful thing to me. I'm so grateful for it, so thank you. Now, in terms of the games purchased, I had an old gift certificate sitting around going all the way back to my birthday, which was probably about 5 months ago now. But I just don't get to the game store all that frequently anymore, so I decided I would take my gift certificate to the game store and pick up a couple of fun-looking family games. So the first game I picked up was King Domino Origins, which is a kind of newer version of a game that I've played in the past when it was first released, called King Domino. I thought the original game was an okay game. I thought it was relatively fun, but when I saw the things that Origins added to the game, I thought, well, that actually looks really up my alley, looks like it would be a fun one to play with my kids, and so I decided to pick that one up. I did, spoiler alert, play this in September, so I am going to talk a lot more about King Domino Origins next month. The other game that I purchased in August was the second game in the Century series of games, and that is Century Golem Edition Eastern Mountains. We previously have owned, for several years now, Century Golem Edition, the original game, and this is such a great game. I talked about it last month in my games played in July. It is a really enjoyable family game that adults can enjoy as well, and so I thought it was about time that I picked up the second game in the series, Eastern Mountains. There is a third one as well, I'm pretty sure, that I wouldn't be surprised gets added to our collection at some point. But Eastern Mountains, again, is a game that I played in September. You're going to hear more about it with my September games played, so stay tuned for that. And that is it. That wraps up my games for the month of August. Let me know what games you've been playing. I always want to hear what's getting to your table, about games maybe you have an eye on. Are there any games on Kickstarter or other crowdfunding sites that you're maybe pledging for and are looking forward to getting? Just tell me what you've been playing, what you're looking forward to. I always love to hear it. And thanks for watching. The preceding video has been brought to you free of charge by me, Josh. The only thing I ask in return is that you either choose to, or if you would send a link for this video with someone who you think would enjoy it. Hi, I'm Josh, and I am so grateful that you have decided to join me as I talk about... Hi, I'm Josh, and I am so very grateful that you've decided to join me as I talk about the games that I played. Hi, I'm Josh, and I am so very grateful that you have chosen to join me as I talk about the games that I added. If you don't want to, this is one I ended up playing. It was certainly fun to enjoy. Obviously.